We joined this game between Louie Salvador and Amruta Mokal at the ChessBase India Chess Club. White is a player from the Philippines. He's rated 2151 and has a small edge in the opening. If you look at Amruta's pawns, they look slightly weakened and there are tactics in the air. But Amruta is very confident. She loves the Sicilian and she brings her rook to c8. Louie Salvador now thinking what to do. e5 is his move. He sacrifices a pawn in the center. Amruta says, well, why shouldn't I take the pawn? And Louie takes the pawn on c6. Takes back and rook takes c6. With this, White has recovered the piece and has two powerful bishops. Also, the pawn on a6 is weak. The time control for this game is 3 minutes. And Amruta is now thinking for her move. She brings her queen back to d8. She's not very certain of what is to be played and she plays it. Queen d8. You can see the atmosphere here. Very nice. Queen exchanged. Rook takes d8 and he takes the pawn on a6. e4 by Amruta. She has to create play in the game or else she would be squashed by these two queenside pawns. Louie now brings his bishop back to d1. For Amruta, she is a pawn down, but she has some activity. She gets her knight to d5, putting pressure on the bishop here on e3. A lot of people shooting the game here. The atmosphere at the ChessBase India Chess Club in the Phoenix Marketcity is very relaxed, but at the same time some games are very competitive, like this one between Amruta and Louie Salvador. Louie was just in India for a few days visiting his sister and he got to know that this chess club happens on Saturdays in Mumbai, and so he dropped by. Funnily, he was also featured on ChessBase India channel earlier when he had beaten Grandmaster Joseph Horvath at the Thailand Open. We link the interview at the end of this video. You can check it out. So he's a very strong player. His highest rating is close to 2300. He brings his bishop to b3. What a decision. Very nice point is that if Amruta takes the bishop on e3, then after fe3, the bishop and the rook will look towards the f7 pawn. Amruta takes on e3, fe3, and she's not very happy with that move because she had forgotten about the f7 pawn. Nevertheless, this is a decent decision by Amruta. She's losing the f7 pawn because if she defends it by rook f8, there is rook a7, so she has to go for activity. She plays her bishop to c5. That's a good move, attacking the pawn on e3. Now Louie has to decide, should he take on f7 with his rook or with the bishop? With the bishop is a check. With the rook, there is a chance for a discovered check. Which one to do? There's not much time on the clock. Both players are close to 1 minute on their clock. Louie takes on f7 and Amruta plays her king to h8 and now rook e1. This is a passive move. If Amruta plays her rook to f8, that would be a good idea. Also, rook d2 is possible. You see in the opposite colored bishop endgames, 1 or 2 pawns deficit is often not the most critical factor. Rook to d3 has been played and the bishop comes to e6, attacking the rook on c8. Is this going to be enough for White to win, or does Black have good counterplay? Rook f8 by Amruta, bringing her rook into the game. Lot of tension and nervousness here. Now Louie plays pawn to g3 and Amruta snatches the pawn king to g2. Now rook f2 can be a very interesting idea, getting in with the rook and then saving the back rank there. But Amruta blunders here. She moves her bishop and Louie instantly takes the pawn. This position is now lost. She's just blundered the pawn there. She was in fact doing quite okay after getting that active play. But this mistake is now decisive. Bishop e3, the bishop comes back to c4, rooks are traded. This time 2 pawns are going to be a bit too much to handle. Bishop d5, Louie takes the practical decision now of going for a rook trade with rook a8. Here he exchanges the rook, takes. Amruta knows that the position is lost. Both players give a smile, but it's not so simple with the opposite colored bishop endgame. King to c5. Well, pawn pushes ahead, and Louie playing quickly there. He knows that he's got the win. a4, bishop f2, king b5, and now the pawn is just running through. As you can see, the ChessBase India Chess Club is open for everyone, but we have some really strong players who visit, and players of all levels get to play here and improve against opponents. Amruta resigns and Louie has won his game. It was a very intense game. Amruta is unhappy that she blundered, but that was a very nice encounter.
No, this one was right.
Yeah, king h3.
King h3.
bishop यहाँ पे था ना, ये तो
I know, but my back rank is weak.
बट चेक के साथ आ रहा था ना, बाद में you could have pushed h6.
हाँ, मतलब yeah, that's what. This was a mistake.
But you had the very
This is a
strong
very good
pawn.
move. Bishop
Yeah, but
d3.
your pawn here